I'm very excited to have this guest here, Mr. Mike Posner. Since 2009, he's been a household name in music. 31 Minutes to Take Off, his debut album, was incredible. At Night Alone, number 12 on the Billboard Top 200. You might know him from hits like Cooler Than Me, Please Don't Go, I Took a Pill in Ibiza, which got 1.5 billion streams worldwide. You might not know that he's actually responsible for hits like Sugar by Maroon 5 and Boyfriend by Justin Bieber as well. And then what I want to really focus on here is his new podcast, which is incredible. It's called What Does This All Mean? And he asks really deep kind of existential questions, meaningful questions. He brings incredible kind of spiritual people like Deepak Chopra, like Sharon Salzberg on his podcast. He talks about what the meaning of life is, and meditation, and how to make yourself feel good every day. And it's incredible. It's almost like a modern like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, because this is a guy who's in the arena. He's making music, he's making hits, but he's also talking about like the most important questions in life. So I'm really excited to have him here and get started. Thank you, Mike, for coming.
Thank you for that sweet intro.
No problem.
I'm excited too.
Cool.
Yeah.
So why don't you just give us a little bit of context, 2 to 3 minutes, your childhood until now, just so the audience kind of knows.
Dang, 2 to 3 minutes. Let's see. I was born in Detroit, Michigan. I lived there until I was 2, when my family moved to Southfield, Michigan, which is a suburb that borders Detroit. And a lot of people are probably familiar with the film 8 Mile, but they may not know the significance of the road, 8 Mile. 8 Mile is a huge road. It's like a main road, and it's significant because it is the border between Detroit and the suburbs. So I lived right on the other side of 8 Mile, 12 miles, in a city called Southfield. Southfield's a special place. Demographically, it's pretty similar to Detroit, though I would say economically it's a little, people are a little more well off in Southfield. But it's a largely African-American city, and I grew up there and got into hip-hop music when I was very young. And when I was in middle school, I remember having a sleepover at my buddy's house, Ronnie, and my other friend Aaron Webster were there, and we all gathered up CDs that had no words on the music, and we were all going to try freestyling. And we all went in the basement, we were rapping, and they were like, that was fun, and I knew I was not going to stop doing that ever, and I haven't really.
There you go.
So yeah, I finished high school there, and I went to college at Duke University. Shout out. Go Devils. And when I got to Duke, I started to sing my raps. I had just rapped that whole time, and I also made beats, and I got a little ahead of myself. But in Detroit, right before I left, I met this guy, Sean, who I used to work with, who later became Big Sean, and I was kind of a part of his crew. And so I went to Duke, and I would make beats for Big Sean. And
how'd you meet Big Sean?
I met Big Sean because my mom told me I had to get a job after senior year. And so I looked online. I found that one of the hip-hop stations in Detroit, it was called Hot 102.7 at the time. I think it's changed names and frequencies since then. Was hiring interns. So I went in, did an interview, and there was a line out the door, and surprisingly they hired me. And one of the other interns was this rapper named Pat Piff. And we worked together, and we became really close, and we used to fold T-shirts and get people coffee and stuff like that. And Pat was in a group with Sean at the time. They were a duo. And Sean had just met Kanye, and Kanye was talking to him, they were courting each other. And then I went to school, and make a long story short, I started to sing my raps. I don't know why. I just thought maybe it was warmer weather, and And I just thought it'd be cool to hear someone sing the way I wanted to hear a singer sing, being a hip hop fan, cause that's like I just loved hip hop. So my first hit song was a song "Cooler Than Me," and it's got sort of an internal rhyme scheme, which is atypical for a singer to do, but very typical for a rapper to do. So what I'm talking about is there's a line that goes, "You got designer shades just to hide your face." So it's not just shades and face that are rhyming, but designer and hide your are also rhyming.
Right.
And I just thought that was dope, because I didn't hear people sing like that. I heard people rap like that. I didn't hear people sing like that. And so I made a mixtape in my dorm room. That was one of the songs. And then Sean gave me 3 verses for my mixtape. A mixtape is really like a free album. And it's not done like legally. You just put it out for free. And I found this sort of loophole in iTunes U. iTunes U, I believe it still exists, but it was set up for professors to put their lectures up online for free. And this was at the height of pirating. There's a few years and where pirating really got out of control before iTunes kind of really rescued the music industry, and it was in that time. And I was stealing everything. I had the Duke internet, like. Yeah, we used the BitTorrents. And so, I remember we had like Kanye graduation a week early. Yeah, you get everything a week early, because that's when the record labels would send the music to the actual plants to make the CDs. So the plants had the music and they would leak it. And yeah. Anyways, I knew if I'm stealing Kanye's album, I know no one's gonna pay for mine because no one knows who I am. So I found out who ran iTunes U at Duke, and his name was Todd Stabley, and he was from Southfield. So I was like, listen, man, I'm a student, I got this album, and he let me, long story short, he let me put my mixtape on iTunes U. So you could go on iTunes and search Mike Posner, my mixtape would come up, but here's the important thing, it would come up and it was free. You just click it, it didn't have a price. And that was a huge catalyst for me at the beginning of my career. That, on top of the fact that Big Sean gave me 3 verses on that mixtape, so people kind of checked it out, and I think people liked it. That's a big part of it too. You can have all those things in place, and if no one likes it, it doesn't really matter. But I think I had been making music 12 years at that point. I think it was good. It was good music, and it took me 12 years to make something like that. Was my own. Before I would, I'd have my Dilla month and my Just Blaze month and my Timon month, and that definitely had influences, but it was unmistakably my music.
Right.
And yeah, that's kind of how my career got started.
Did you have like a kind of an I made it moment? You have a really great podcast episode where you talk about meeting Kanye a few times, and you're very nervous around him. And then you meet Jay, who actually signs you.
Jay did not sign me.
He did not sign you?
It came close, though.
Okay.
He made me offer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, he made you an offer. Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. Was there a moment where you were like, I made it, this is it, maybe being in the office with Jay-Z or the release of Cooler Than Me and it just kind of blowing up? Or?
Well, yeah, it's a funny thing. All those moments had their thrill that went with them. But it's kind of one of the things to get into in the podcast is it seemed to really be a moving target, where the thing that I thought would be the I made it moment felt good for, maybe an hour, maybe a week, depending on how big the thrill. But then I felt the same. My experience of life felt the same. And it's not that my life got worse when I got popular or more well-known or made more money. It's that I thought it would get better, and it was the same. And that was very disillusioning to me. And I have a series of goals and things I'm working on now, but I know they're not really going to change my life. I know like I want to win a Grammy.
Right.
I know I'm gonna get the Grammy and it'll feel cool for a week or two.
Right.
And I'll still be me.
What if you have that kind of broader outlook and you understand kind of the meaninglessness of, you know, material things and progress like that? What motivates you at this point in your life now that you're more kind of
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I'm not sure I have the full answer to it, because there is a part of me, and one of the questions I asked on the podcast, I don't have an answer to that. I don't know if anything matters. I don't know if any. So you know, people say like, well, we have to solve global warming. We have to solve global warming if we want humans to continue being a species that's alive, right? But I'm unclear as to why that matters if we're a species that's alive or not. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you asked.
And like, how do we know that's a good thing? It could actually be a bad thing. We might be in the way of something else. And I think, you know, if I had to answer, I would probably say it's not good or bad. It just doesn't matter. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's like, how do you organize your life when is desire enough? You know, it's like, I want to do this thing, so, or experience this thing. So is that how I organize my life? I go chase all the things I desire and organize, and then it's over one day. I don't know.
Were you always kind of asking these questions, like when you're kind of on the come up and just trying to make it in music? Were you also thinking about these larger kind of existential and spiritual questions?
Not so much. If anything, I feel I've had the privilege to ask them now, because, you know, people, like, I'm sure everyone in this room has been told, like, money doesn't buy happiness, right? If you haven't been told that directly, you've heard that. And I was told that directly by my parents. And when people would say that to me, I would nod, but in my head, I would think, you just didn't make enough money. Like, you didn't make it past the threshold. And I'm gonna make more than you. And so fast forward to like age 22, I was a multimillionaire. And like I said, my experience of life didn't change. So I got the privilege of asking, if not that, then what? And people have different theories about then what. And you know, I'm not here proselytizing for any of them. There's some things that I do in my life that seem to make me happier, but I don't think they're the capital T truth, or like the only one, the correct way. Because I don't think there is one. I wish there was. Like, it'd be more simple, right?
Right.
But it's nuanced, you know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. It seems like you have a lot of kind of new, you know, very interesting role models that you bring onto the podcast, or kind of spiritual teachers, people like Deepak Chopra and Sharon Salzberg. Can you talk about maybe 2 to 3 of those people and what they kind of mean to you?
Deepak to me means, yeah, I'm not, you know, he's written something like 80 books, you know, or something like that. I haven't read any of them. I mean, I think I probably will at some point, but I haven't yet. I met him before I got into his stuff. I listened to some of his YouTubes and stuff like that. But for me, he means someone who is on their sadhana, which means like spiritual path, while in the world, like in the thick of things. You know, you might come, like, I think he's done one of these talks at Google. You know, it's like he's not in a cave somewhere, but he seems to be doing the cave work while being in the world. So that's what he means to me. Sharon, to me, means someone who just really has really done the work, is doing the work, and seems to live according to her beliefs, which I respect anyone who does that, even when I don't agree with their beliefs. I work with some artists that are like very sort of hardcore Christians, and I may not agree with all their beliefs. I actually agree with some of them. But I have respect for when they actually live that way. Like I know, okay, he won't sing on a song because I cursed in it. I want to have him on the song, but like I really respect that guy for actually saying no. So I think of her in that way. Yeah.
Nice. Talk about your creative process a little bit. We were talking earlier, and you were saying that you just whip out the laptop and you just start recording kind of, wherever you are. Do you think that there's a way to kind of generate creativity? Do you ever get stuck and feel like, I can't make music right now?
Sure. I'm blessed I'm in a place where I don't have to make any music. And I try to be careful to not just make music just to make music. I mean, I do because it's fun, but I won't put something out in the world just to put something out in the world so people keep talking about me. I want to do something when I feel like I have something to say. So nowadays, they talk about like the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours. I did that. I did that for music, which is other things I had 10,000 hours in on. But for like writing songs, me in the studio, I've done that. And for some years, I'll do a song a day, record, produce, write, everything, like finished. And, so I've gone through that. And now I just sort of wait until it comes through me. So I don't really try to write anymore. I just wait until writing happens.
What would you say you're making a new album, right?
Correct.
What would you say it's kind of about? Just talk about kind of what it means to you, trying to express by making it.
It's trying to express truth, the capital T truth, which is hard to do with words because words are symbols of reality, right? So like the word water is a symbol for that, right? Or the word two is a symbol for it isn't actually that, it's just a symbol for it. Or Ram Dass says, your words are all fingers pointing at the moon, they are not the moon.
Right.
And I personally feel like I can get closer to the truth with music. I think that's why I do it. I've been trying to get better at speaking, but for a long time I felt sort of, I would hear myself speak like a recording or I'd see an interview of myself and it's like, it felt like I was wearing a costume, the way I spoke. And it seemed like the only way I could really express or get close to the truth was with music.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing great today.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. I think, so you spent like 7 days alone in a cabin, and I think like day 5 or 6, you were like, what would a world without language kind of be? And so was that kind of what you were referring to when you were like,
yeah,
it's a symbol for water, it's not actually water?
Well, yeah, I think I went a little further that day. It was an interesting week, man. So I felt called to solitude for a while. I don't know why. It was part of me was just curious. Part of me like wanted to be able to sound deep and cool when I do stuff like this. And part of me thought maybe there was actually something there for me to discover. So I spent a week this summer, or this past summer, in a cabin on the property of a Buddhist monastery in Colorado. And it's like they had a main monastery, but this was like up there. It's set up for you not to see anyone and no one to see you for as long as you want to be there. So yes, on the 5th day, I started to think more about language because language is really set up to differentiate. It's there so we can tell the difference between the notebook and the jeans and the shoes and, you know, and the hand, right? That's what the words do. Otherwise, it might just be one hot, it's just reality, right? So I realized, like, I'm sitting in this cabin trying to experience the oneness of the universe, but my thoughts are in English. So if I'm experiencing reality through language, which is set up to differentiate, how could I ever experience oneness? And it begs the question, like, is there a way to think outside of language? Maybe you guys do. I don't know how anyone else's brain works, but my thoughts, most of them, I think, are in words. They're in language. So is there a way to think outside of words? I think there is. And I think that maybe is the most powerful technology we could create, is a way to switch. Because there's no doubt that language is valuable for other things, right? But to experience unity maybe isn't so valuable. Is there a way that we can flip back and forth between those two modes?
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys should figure that
Yeah,
out.
sometimes you're at Google, so
Yeah.
we'll meet afterwards.
Yeah.
I took a pill in Ibiza. Can you take us through the making of it, what you were thinking when you were writing it?
Sure.
And then how it got picked up with the remix and everything like that.
So I was in the studio with a country artist and a wonderful guy named Jake Owen. You know Jake Owen?
I don't.
He's a sick country singer. You should check him out. And he's like popular right now.
Okay.
It's one of the bigger country artists right now. I know you're a hip hop guy,
Yeah.
like me. So Jake used to cover a song from my first album on his tour. Like I guess he just liked it. So we tweeted, ended up going to this, he was in LA, he invited me to come to the studio. So I went to the studio with him and we're just hanging out and we're doing what we call pass the guitar. I play a song for him, pass the guitar to him, he plays one, pass it back, etc. And just going back and forth. I played him an old tune of mine, and he goes, I really like this song. What inspired it? I said, it's about a girl I had a thing with in New York, and then some of it I just kind of made up. And he looked at me, yeah, exactly. He looked at me and he goes, well, why don't you just tell the truth? I guess I looked sort of quizzical back, and he qualified it. He said, you know, there's writers out there that just tell the truth. He said, let me show you. And he played me a Hank Williams Jr. song. He played me some old Merle Haggard and these guys. It actually felt really hip hop to me. But in a lot of ways, it connected with me more because their stories were more. Well, I shared that authenticity of hip hop. You know, like if you're a rapper and you lie and people find out you lied, like it's kind of a big deal, you know? Like if we find out Rihanna doesn't write her songs, like
Right.
we kind of know that. Like
Right.
it's fine. She's Rihanna, she's an amazing artist. Remember when like that thing came out, Drake didn't write a song?
Right,
It's a
Meek
huge deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? It's like a scandal. Because authenticity matters in hip hop. It matters that you're telling the truth. And the same is true in country. And so these guys, like Merle Haggard, you know, these guys like will tell these stories, but their stories sounded like my story. Because it was like, oh, I experienced this fame, I fell off, and no one cares about me now. And it just blew my mind. It blew my mind. I left that studio and I was invited to go with a friend to the Winter Olympics in Russia. I left, I went on a plane, and Jake had like recorded some of these songs of him singing older songs, and I had the recordings and I was just listening to them over and over again. And I was on a plane that I took a pill and Ibiza just kind of came out. I wrote it down. I think I meditated on the plane and like some of the melodies came. I landed in Russia and like put chords to what was in my notebook, and then later I thought the song was done, but it didn't have the chorus yet. So it didn't have all I know, sad song. It wasn't in it yet. I was getting ready for a tour, and I was going to play I Took a Pill in Ibiza on the tour. And I was rehearsing it just alone in my house, and I thought, man, it'd be like this song needs a part the audience can sing with me right away. Then obviously no one knows this song yet, it's brand new. I haven't recorded it yet. So while I was rehearsing for the show, I made up that part. Oh, I know, sad song. 'Cause I just wanted them to be able to sing something with me. And then I guess that's when the writing was complete. And, you get a song that you like or a good recording. I've written thousands of songs in my life. Probably less than 5% of the songs I write go out in the world because I don't think all of them are good.
Did you just write in a notebook like all day? Or?
Yeah, or like sometimes they're full songs they write on a guitar,
Yeah.
Or sometimes you write to a beat, so they make a beat first. So I'm 29, and I started when I was 8. So it's, 21 years of I've written all different ways. Sometimes people say, you write a lyric first or music first? I'm like, I've done it every way.
Right.
So anyways, you get a song you like you think it's good, I'll spend as long as I need to on the recording until I think it's right. So it kind of took a while. I did maybe 5 different productions of the song. And I put out the version I liked, which I did in London with Martin Terefe. And that's another interesting thing about music. So you kind of get a sound in your head that you hear the way it's going to sound, and you don't know where that's going to take you. Sometimes there's a guy that has that sound in San Francisco or New York or London or wherever, Atlanta. You don't know. You chase it. I ended up in London because this guy, he had the sound I heard in my head. And we did the track, and then I was just went back to practicing guitar and in my own world. And I have these great guys I work with at my label named Zeke and Matt, and they called and they said, is it cool if we get a remix done? I said, of course, because on my mixtapes, I always remixed other people's songs. And I was just kind of doing my thing, and I didn't really pay attention to it, and I had a really long beard. I was living in my van at the time in Utah, and then my manager called, and he's like, yeah, that song, the remix is #1 in Norway. I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And it just kind of spread from there.
Yeah.
And became this big song. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm kind of lucky. I write a lot of songs, and my music I make because that's the music I want to exist in the world. That's my job. That's any artist's job. You're supposed to create what you want to be created. And that's it. Not what I think you would like to hear or you, and it gets a little muddy. Create what I want, and that's what I do. And it seems every once in a while, a lot of people, there's either some random piece I make and
Yeah.
gets super popular.
Do you feel like you could tell? Do you know?
No. So I think I know when it's good to me. Mm-hmm. And when I wrote that song, I was proud of that. But I'm proud of a lot of stuff I make. So I didn't think it would be on the radio. I mean, I put a drug reference in the title, so I didn't think it would be on the radio.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think maybe that was part of it, the controversy element?
It probably didn't hurt.
Yeah.
I knew that naming it that. If I saw it, I felt like I would want to click on that.
Right.
But I didn't think it would. Yeah, I didn't think it would play on pop radio ever.
Right.
For that reason.
Right. Can you talk about some of your musical influences in general? We were talking a bit earlier, but from Detroit and then just in general outside of Detroit as well.
Man, there's so many. Yeah. It's a really tough question for me, and I don't want to dodge it. But what's gonna happen is there's There's just so many. It's just.
Could I maybe confine it to? I'm a hip hop guy, so
Yeah.
hip hop.
Totally, we can do like a top 5.
Top 5, yeah. What's your top 5?
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive.
Okay. Nas.
Yeah.
3 Stacks.
Yeah.
Eminem.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm running out. See, I want to say Pac, and I want to say Biggie, and I want to say Jay-Z, but I only have 2 spots left.
Yeah, so who's going to be in the You can't do 6.
This is always what happens, right? I'll do Pac and Hova.
Wow, so you left Biggie out.
I left Biggie out this time. My top 5 is kind of fluid.
Yeah, okay.
Today.
Do you still do any rapping, or you
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I still rap, especially I have a band separate from my music called Mansions, and Mansions is a duo. It's me and Black Bear. We have one album out. We put it out in March. I rap a lot on that album, and it's probably my best record that I've been a part of. Just like, yeah, it's a great record. I'm really proud of that one.
What are your top books or kind of, philosophies or books that have inspired you?
Top books. Whenever someone's like going through something and they ask me a question, I always say Alchemist.
Okay.
I'm like, you can read in a day.
Yeah.
I know like 99.9% of people that read it will like it.
Yeah. Do you believe in that concept of kind of manifesting your fate?
I do believe in the law of attraction.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. Which in essence is you get what you think about. But there's a subtlety to it, which is like, for example, if I want to have another hit song, if I think about I'm gonna have another hit song, the law of attraction says I'll get it. But if I think about I don't have it yet, when is it coming? What's wrong? Why isn't it here yet? I'll get more of what's wrong. Why isn't it here yet? I'm manifesting that.
Right.
So there's a subtlety to it, and I do believe in that. Like and it kind of makes sense, like rationally, without the woo woo of it.
Right.
Like if I'm focused on what I want, and these kind of opportunities show up in my life, I'll be more apt to notice them and chase them.
Right.
I see them as opportunities. Whereas if I'm in a pessimistic mindset, I might not even walk through that door because it doesn't matter,
Right.
So I do believe in that. So some of the books that, one, kind of my story of believing in more than I can see. With that goes back to Big Sean. So after we did a mixtape and a couple of years passed, my career kind of leapfrogs his, and he was stagnant for a while in his music. He'd been signed like 5 years, nothing was really happening, and then all of a sudden, boom, his career explodes. And I went to see him in the studio one day in Hollywood, and he was just like glowing. You're like around a person and you just like feel really good around, they make you feel good just by being, they're not doing anything special. It was like that. And I went back to the studio the next day and I was like, what's up with you, man? Like, what? He was like, you gotta read these 2 books. And the first one was Alchemist. Second one was Ask and It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks, which is all about the law of attraction. And those 2 books are like, I don't know if he still does, but he used to carry that Ask and It Is Given with him everywhere.
Wow.
Like he would have it, and his all be worn out and stuff. And and I seen it work in my career. After my first album, I put out my first single, which was that song "Cooler Than Me," which I talked about earlier, and it was this big hit all over the world. And I thought, that's what happens when I put out singles. And so I put out another one. I put out my and everyone would tell me like, you know, it's a rare thing to happen, but it like I was 1 for 1, you know, like I'm 100%. So I put my next one was a little less popular. Then my next one's a little less popular than that, and slowly my popularity started to wane. And at the time, you know, it's interesting. We were talking like my self-identity was really wrapped up in being popular, like the guy. But then it started to disappear. And so I was like, okay, I'm still alive, but who I thought I was, how I think of myself, who I am, is gone. It doesn't apply. I'm not popular really anymore. So who am I? And I had to figure that out. And I started telling this story because my artist career was really considered over. I was considered a one-hit wonder, which I was. And I was what we call in the music industry shelved, which means you're on a label, but they have no plans of releasing your album. You're just kind of stuck. And to everyone else, it was fun. It was over. But I somehow, I would meditate every day and I'd visualize, and I'd somehow trick myself into thinking, no, I'm gonna have another big song. I'm gonna play on Jimmy Fallon. I'm gonna win the Song of the Year Grammy or the Album of the Year Grammy. It was one of those two. And I would just focus on seeing it. My mom would call. She's like, "You off that label yet?" I'm like, "No, Mom, but it's all gonna work out." Every week she would call, "You off that label yet?" "No, Mom, but it's all gonna work out." "You off that label yet?" "No, Mom." "Did you call your lawyer?" "Yeah, I called my lawyer. Yeah, but it's all gonna work out." And it took a year, 2 years, a lot of practicing my guitar and doing my music, but I had another hit song. I played on Jimmy Fallon, and I got nominated for Song of the Year Grammy.
Yeah.
All the stuff. I wrote it down, it's like it all happened. It all happened except I didn't win it. Lost it to Adele.
It's a good person to lose it to.
Yeah, but it was like, you know what I mean? So I do believe in that that stuff. You know? And I do believe I'll win one of those.
There you go.
At some point in my life.
Putting it out into the universe.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. It sounds like that kind of down period made you more kind of stoic as well. Like you talk about on your podcast, like you make songs now and you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's just about the process and putting it out there and, you being into the song.
Yeah, it's a important distinction. When I was younger, I was in high school and I would rap and I would do battles I skipped over that in my 2 to 3 minutes because I only had 2 to 3 minutes. I would do battles, like Eminem, like during the football games, I'd be battling. So I was really small.
Did you ever battle Big Sean?
I never battled him, but we'd freestyle a lot together. We actually freestyle on the radio together in Detroit. Every Friday they have Freestyle Fridays.
Do you think you're better than him?
Not now, but then, yeah, I thought I was. And I'm biased, it's hip hop, it's competitive.
Yeah.
So 2006 Mike versus 2006 Sean, I think 2006 Mike was better, for sure. But that's my hip hop side. And it's my brother, you know what I mean? I wouldn't be in the chair if it wasn't for him. But yeah, now he's another level. I think he's one of the best in the world, period. And I don't rap that much anymore. So he's leapfrogged me by a lot in that arena. But, that sort of bombastic mentality helped me in that period because Sean got signed before me. And because I thought I was better than him, when he got signed by Kanye and Def Jam, I knew I was going to get signed too. It was that's my buddy. He made it real, So I thank him all the time because he made it real for all of us, That can be done.
That can happen, yeah.
That can happen. And if you believe in law of attraction, it couldn't have happened unless I started to believe it. And I wouldn't have believed it until I saw him do it.
Yeah. Are there kind of daily habits that you do that get you going, keep you inspired?
My daily routine looks something like, if I'm really in the zone, like I want to be, I'll wake up at 5:30. Sometimes I'm like 6:45, but I like wake up at 5:30. The first thing I do is drink I always keep water right next to my bed. I drink like a huge thing of water. We always drink gallon. We call them G's. We have a gallon of water. We can sip on it all day, and hopefully you finish it by the end of the day. So I'll drink a ton of water and go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, and then I meditate 20 minutes, and then I exercise. And that all happens before I go off airplane mode on my phone.
That's great. Is there a podcast that you feel like you've learned the most from, or that your favorite podcast is? I know you mentioned the one about the loss of your father, and then Alex Benayan's talking about the loss of his father. Is that your favorite podcast?
Of my episodes?
Of your episodes, yeah.
I really like that one, and I really like the one which is just me talking about my week in solitude.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I went pretty deep in that one.
Can you talk about how the loss of your father has kind of affected you over this past year?
Yeah, in a myriad of ways. The first of which was pretty obvious, which it just reminded me something I already knew intellectually, which was, I'm next. I'm going to die also, and I don't know when. So most people in this room, including myself, it changes, but most of us have a list of things we want to do when we're done doing what we have to do. Like, just curious, like raise your hands, who has one of those right now? Don't be shy, just be honest, like I have one. Okay, it's like well over half the room, right? So, and probably some of the people are just shy. I don't really believe you. Most of us have something we're putting off for later. And I think that's directly tied to the fact that we are really masterful in our culture at pretending like we won't die. You hear people say, like, if I die, it's like, no, it's not if, it's when. And I'll bring it up sometimes, and people say, don't bring that up right now. I don't want to think about that. Which is fine, you don't have to think about it right now, but if you never think about it, what happens is you live a life where that list of later gets longer and longer, and it doesn't get done. And the reason it doesn't get done is because you've convinced yourself you're not going to die. Why would you do it now if you're going to live forever? Right? It makes sense you'd put it off. You have unlimited time, But that's not real. You don't. So the first way it affected me was like I just started to do the things off my list last year. That's why I spent that week alone, because that was on my list. Like I had been wanting to do that for years. But it's like, well, I have to finish being popular first, then I can spend my week alone. And
what else is on the list?
Some of the other things that were on the list that I did was I wanted to see the woman that wrote Asking It Is Given. She does speaking engagements, and I wanted to go to one. So I went to one of those. I wanted to go back to Burning Man because I had gone once before, and I just loved it.
Yeah.
And I skipped a year because I was on tour. I was being Mike Posner. And so I went back. I think there's a bunch more things. There's a couple things I haven't done yet. One is I want to spend a month, like at a month-long retreat at a monastery somewhere. And I plan on doing that. Yeah.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah, I'm sure I will too.
Do you feel like
I'm a weirdo.
Do you feel like doing these things? You mentioned you kind of put them off and you wanted to kind of make it before you did those things. Do you feel like doing these things actually helps you in your musical career as well, because you kind of come back and you're refreshed and you're ready to make music, or do you feel like it's like a totally separate thing?
No, they're definitely tied. Who you are, I had my piano teacher, one of my mentors, rest in peace, his name was Norman Henry Mamie. And he was telling me a story about when he used to work with his teacher. And he would say, sometimes I go to the lesson, and his teacher's name was Edith Knox. She was really, it was a strong lineage. That's kind of important in like piano teaching. And I sit on the piano bench next to Edith, and we talk. We have an hour lesson, and we spend 50 minutes talking about politics, sex, everything. And I started to get frustrated because we weren't playing.
Right.
And so I asked her, why do we never play? And she said, Norman, all of that goes into this. And I believe that. Like who you are as a human is directly correlated to who you are as an artist. And that's not to say like if you're a great guy and you start making music, you're gonna be an amazing artist. There's some like skill
Technical
involved.
skill,
yeah, you gotta practice.
Yeah.
But when you do both, it matters. I've been there. I've done the opposite.
Right.
Where I've been in the studio for like a year and not really done anything else, like basketball and studio. Mm-hmm. And there have been points where I just realized I'm writing songs, I'm like, these are all lies because I don't do anything in my life. And there's no authenticity in my music because all I do is make music. And there's nothing for me to really talk about except for making music. So it's a balance. And I always feel like I have this mandate, especially now. I shouldn't say always. I feel like in the last 5 years, I have this mandate for my audience. And my audience pays my bills. And they've paid me, God bless them, to a point where I don't have to make more money. So, and I bring that up, it's kind of a sleazy thing to talk about tied to art, but it actually is important to me because now I get to ask the questions. Like I don't have to work. So what is life about if you don't have to work?
Right.
And I feel like they're paying me to ask that question and report back. And that's my job. So I think that stuff is important. But also the reporting back is important. So I don't think whenever I go and do these kind of experiments out of curiosity or I never feel like I'm not going to come back and talk about it and share about it. That's important to me too. And that I realized that a lot when I was alone. It's like Mike, you do these cool things just so you can be the guy that said you did the cool thing.
Right.
But you don't share what you actually got out of it with anyone. And so that's a big part of it. It's sharing what I got. And I want to thank you for allowing me. I hope I've done a little bit of that here today.
Absolutely. It's been amazing. Final question is Jordan Peterson, who we were talking about earlier, who you're a big fan of, and I am as well. Talks about actually this like kind of future authoring exercise where you write about what you're gonna do in the future. And you talked about on your you had a podcast about the new year and what are you gonna do in the next 3, 4, 5 years and hold yourself to that. So what does Mike Posner look like in 5 years from now?
Oh man, who knows? But I know there's some things I want to do. Mm-hmm. Or accomplish. I want to win one of those Grammys still, for sure. I'm thinking about doing a really long walk. I'm not sure yet. Yeah, like maybe across America, or like a long one.
That's long.
Yeah, it's 6 to 12 months, depending how fast you go.
Wow. Is that bad for your knees?
I don't know. I think what I've heard, it's really hard on your feet.
Okay.
So to get ready for it, they recommend wearing no shoes, make your feet stronger.
Yeah.
And like, you know, those are sort of like maybe 5 years, and then on the like shorter term,
Yeah.
like this year, I'm reading every day.
Awesome.
I missed reading like novels or whatever, like maybe. So right now, yeah, I'm reading every day. It can just be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, but it ends up being more. But that's like my shorter term this year thing I'm doing.
Cool. You guys want to do a little audience Q&A?
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Anybody have any questions?
Damn, whopping nothing.
Right.
Yay.
You just speak into it? Is that right,
Oh.
Justin?
Cool. Apologies in advance if you've probably talked about this a lot online, but
It's okay.
I never thought to search, and now I get to ask. I was debating with my sister recently about your song "Cooler Than Me," because you know she came on to you recently and was like, "Oh, this is super cool." I'm like, "What? No, I've been like into his music for ages." Yeah, and like she was saying, we were disagreeing about kind of like what the message was or kind of what it was about, and my interpretation was, oh, you know, it's really about this guy's projection of who he thinks this woman is, and it's more about his, you know, reactions to it and his self versus a portrait of this woman. And so I was wondering, when you were writing it, what did you think it was about?
I didn't. No, I'm formulating my thoughts because it's interesting the way you phrase the questions. When you thought when I was writing it, what did I think? I didn't think that. I just thought the girls weren't as nice to me as they should be. But hearing what you said so eloquently, that's probably a little closer to the truth, right? And this woman, whoever she is, you know, has her own insecurity going on, and you know, of course, that's not who she is. You know, there's definitely more to her story than I'm giving her the time of day in that song. And you know, a lot of my songs, as I listen back to them, are really like pretty embarrassingly sexist. I don't think it's funny. Like, you know, and people request a song. I have a song called "Bow Chicka Wow Wow" with Lil Wayne.
On it, yeah.
It's just terribly misogynistic, and I don't think about it because, you know, you write it and you move on. But I was showing someone requesting, and I started singing, and I was like, whoa, I wrote this, and yeah, it's just like I feel like a different guy. Which I'm proud that I'm changing and growing to the point where I would never write that now, but that's where I was then. So you didn't really ask that about that, but I think what I was thinking at the time was different from what you said, but I think what you said is probably more accurate. Like, that was really going on, and Mike had a lot of insecurities at the time as well, and still does.
Well, it makes it a more nuanced song if it's about the, I guess, singer himself than, you know, about the portrait. But either way, it's a really cool
Yeah,
song.
and there's no right answer, you know. Kind of like the obnoxious artist answer is like, that's not my job. It's the audience's job to figure out what it's about. I just write it.
It's a fun job.
But my first answer stands. Yeah. I think you can throw it, right? It's soft.
I think so.
Thanks for being here. You
Thank
have
you.
a really cool Zen vibe about you that I didn't fully know or expect. So it's very cool to.
I appreciate that. Don't worry, I have my moments.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's
I
obvious
have
you.
this neighbor that I live next door to. I live close to here in Venice, and a lot of times I'll eat I have a little porch, and I'll go out there in the sun and I'll eat. And so I'm like, every time I'm on that porch, I'm like chilling, you know. And she's like, I feel like you make me want to be a better person. You're like so angelic, and you're always so relaxed. I'm like, that's just my porch vibe. Don't worry, I have nervous breakdowns sometimes.
Well,
But
thank
sorry,
you.
interrupt.
No, it's cool. And you definitely brought the porch vibe here to this office, which I think is a pretty cool vibe too.
Cool. Yeah, I agree.
I have a question for you about misogyny in hip hop because I'm a huge hip hop fan. I grew up on Tupac. My brother was friends with Lil Wayne down in New Orleans, so we've been surrounded by it my whole life. And maybe it's because I'm a mom now, but when I listen to some of the songs I used to listen to, or even Big Sean or whoever's on the radio, I wonder if I'm betraying sort of my feminism because of what they're saying. Like I might love the beat. Like I was listening to G-Eazy yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, like I can't. I want to like this song, but I'm so mad at this song. And I wonder if you have struggled with that yourself as someone who's evolving, or if that's something you talk about with these amazing people you work with, because there's a lot of women in here that if we just stopped listening to the music, like I wonder what would happen to the music. I wonder if we could change things, but I also wonder if there's a conversation that you men are having.
Yeah, I haven't had it with any of those guys. I probably should. And as you were speaking, I'm reminded of, I think it was Kanye first said, you know, I'm not going to say gay or fag in my songs anymore.
I think he had a cousin who was gay in that. Yeah.
And he just, and then I feel like maybe I'm wrong. I don't listen as closely to hip hop as I used to, not even close. So maybe you can help me. But
It was
it's,
Kanye, for sure.
but moving on, like it seemed like that rippled out, and it, from my perspective, those words got used less as across the whole genre after he did that.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like it's just like someone needs to step up like that and just say, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I feel like people would follow it because it doesn't really make sense. You know, it doesn't make sense.
It's lazy. It's like, why are we still talking about
I
it?
was sure if you speak with them, they wouldn't speak that way. It's kind of, to me, it's become kind of this, what's the word, like, you can help me out. I can't think of like a
Tribe. It's just for sure.
not contrived, like a go-to, almost like crutch in the music.
Right.
The crutch isn't the word, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. It's something people.
Gimmick.
No, the word isn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But it's something people just have done in the music,
Right.
and people are doing it just because it's been done.
Right.
And I think that's as deep as it goes. Honestly, it's just like, it's like a tradition. It's an ingrained tradition that is outdated, it's antiquated, and even some of my newer music that I've written, I find from like stuff I wrote 2 years ago, which may end up on this album catching stuff. So I think, yeah, each artist has to take that, the listener for sure, but I think, I don't know, maybe it's all the above, but I think a big artist stepping up and would make a difference. I do. And as far as do I feel that tear? Yeah, I do. Because some of it's so good. We were like, me and my buddy Nick were listening to this guy XXX. He used to say Tenacion. I can't say it, but it's really good. It's like amazing, angry music. It's the highest quality angry music, but it makes me angry, you know? And so, you know, and I'm reading, like the book I'm reading right now is Chuck Palahniuk. He wrote Fight Club. It's like amazing, the best, highest quality dark novel. But is like, I'm entertained, but is it like messing me up, you know? Consuming this, I don't know, it's a good question we have to grapple with, I think.
Eric.
Individually. Yeah.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
So I just want to say thanks for coming. Thanks for spending some time with us. One of my favorite songs of yours is Wonder Why on the Wale Back to the Future mixtape.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, that was
deep
dope.
cut.
Yeah, man.
Big Sean, produced by Ninth Wonder.
Yeah, that was hot, man. And so earlier on, you talked a little bit about Truth, and then you guys both mentioned to be fans of Jordan Peterson, who is amazing and just a fantastic.
Yeah, I want to say also, like, I don't agree with everything Jordan Peterson says, but I'm a fan of, like, he brings up a discussion and like gets me to think.
Yeah. And
So,
so,
Yeah, just
and-
want to say
I
that.
echo
little caveat.
Second that.
I hear ya. I mean, I was just gonna ask, in Jordan's, dialogue, he talks a lot about the strengthening of the individual as opposed to like the weakening of society. If you want to make it, you have to really work on yourself as opposed to trying to change others. And for me, that was a really big, profound truth. It was something that I'd never really given much thought to until he so eloquently talked about it. And so I was just kind of curious if you had any similar takeaways from Jordan's discussions or dialogues.
Man, I think I've probably had several, but yeah, that's definitely one of them. Which is like, actually, there's another one. But instead of expounding on yours, I'm gonna bring up a separate thing I've gotten from him, which he was talking about marriage. And he said, if you think you might leave your partner, you're not really married. And he said, to play some games, you have to be all in. Which is a really interesting concept, right? And he says the interesting thing about life for all of us is we're all in. He says this is gonna kill us, whether we like it or not. At the game of life, you're gonna die at the end. So what are you gonna do with your time? How are you gonna play? That resonated with me a lot.
Any other questions right there?
Thanks. Hi,
Hi.
and thank you for the picture earlier.
You're welcome. What's your name?
Liliana.
Liliana Mike. Nice
Nice
to meet you.
So I have two questions. One, because I posted on social media, there's a question, and there's
Okay.
I'll just ask it first because that's what they want to know. But how much do you charge when you create music, like Justin Bieber's boyfriend, for example? Not my
Wait,
question.
is that like the new way of saying I have a friend,
No, no.
No, I'm
It's
not
here.
coming for I actually believe
I'll ask
you.
you my question after.
No, I believe you. I really wanted to make a joke. But typically how that stuff works is it's largely based on royalties. So you get a percentage depending on how many people wrote the song. I'm a big proponent of if there are 4 guys in the room, you just split it even. Sometimes people get into this thing where I wrote 30 lines and you wrote 30 or you wrote 29, so I should get this much. That always gets icky to me. I like to just do it even. And so basically you get paid a percentage of whatever money comes in.
Okay.
And for producers, it's a little different. A producer, depending on who it is, gets an advance, which means they get paid money up front, and then as the money comes in, the other person gets that advance paid back, and then they get the profits after that. So advance for producers can range. Like if it's your first beat you're ever selling, typically going rates like 5,000. I think you probably know better than me, but a new producer, $5,000 to $10,000 would be like an advance, and then I don't know what the high end is now. For like back in the days when people were buying more music, like Scott Storch, these guys sell a track for like $1 million, but I think that's gone down because people buy less music.
Thank you. But
Yeah.
now my question.
Okay.
I'll answer that's personal.
Okay.
Okay, so at the beginning of the talk, you mentioned how, maybe like global warming is something really important, but maybe it doesn't really matter because we're getting in the way of something much larger. So then when you
Yeah.
think about things like that, then how do you decide what really matters?
Yeah, I'm not sure anything does. I mean, there are things definitely that matter to me. Like my mom matters to me. But there is that in the background. Like, why does it matter that your mom matters to you? Like, if I just cut her off, which I never would do, and does that matter in the great scheme of things? And the answer is, we don't know. We don't have perspective enough to tell.
Okay.
If we had like a God perspective, we could see the Bible says like thou shalt not kill, right? It sounds like reasonable, right? I don't kill people. But what if someone, like the person was about to kill 2 people? Then is it okay? And so these things get kind of like icky really quickly, you know? And some people say no, but what if they're about to kill 1,000,000 people? I don't know. So it's very nuanced, and we don't have the perspective to see what.
So does that get in the way of your happiness every day? Like if you're making decisions, do you think about it broadly like
At times, there's an E.B. White quote. It says, I wake up in the morning and I don't know whether to save the world or savor it. This makes it hard to start the day. And yeah, I feel that sometimes. But you know, it's waves. Sometimes I go, it's like, well, I'm just gonna play my guitar a lot today, you know?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
coming.
guys.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you.